There we go. We're live, finally. Boy, that took forever. Ooh. But indeed, here we are. Yeah, I'll bet. Chillstream. I guess there we go. Ooh, we'll get a like. Oh wow, I guess I don't have to type, do I? I can just talk to you and answer the questions. I'm not sure, I'm basically just trying to test out the streaming stuff. Does everything sound fine and dandy? It took me like a million years to get the microphone working. Excellent. What can I do here? Ooh, getting some more people. Oh, playbacks? Man, as if I know what these analytics mean. Alright, now I wonder what I can do. All of this. Well, this seems pretty exhilarating. Oh, yeah, that's probably a good thing. Although that is essentially what my channel is all about. Haha. Classic. Let's see.
Now, I don't know. Now, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but some Americans have been really worried about Australian lockdowns. And one commentator is so concerned, she wants to send US troops to liberate us. Look, I was so touched by the offer that I decided to make this message in the latest and no doubt your favourite news segment of my popular series. From Yusuf to US. Hi, America. It's been a tough couple of COVID years here in Australia, but we've managed to get through it with the knowledge that you have our backs. And we're really looking forward to those nuclear subs in a few decades, by the way. But we didn't know just how concerned you were about us until now.
Alright. That didn't really work, did it? So, if I take this back... bum, bum. go? Oh. Alright. Wow, that's pretty rude. One question. Oh, bro, brutal. Look, I have to admit that I haven't actually read Karl Marx. I've just so I don't know. Actually, I've read some essays of his that Christopher Hitchens talked about, but I haven't read any of his political analysis. I've literally just read his like social critiques after he moved to London. So, who knows, really? I think the bigger question, no, do you think he's hot? Let's have a look. Alright. So we've got this. That's yeah, that's definitely something. You should see the Hitler one. It's bizarre. See, how do I preview? Thank you for being here during this trying time. As I try and literally just figure out how to make this work. Oh my god, like, pretty clever, hacking the system. Karl Marx wishes that he was a real human, I'll tell you that. Like, look, he's certainly got the beard of a revolutionary. Do we really need to like read all of his stuff? Karl Marx. Why is Karl Marx boring? Why is the first chapter of Karl Marx so boring? Love it. Marx's Spectre. Let's look up Christopher Hitchens Marx. Google Karl think this is the kind of classic. It's horrifying. Oh, wait, what? Surely that's not him. Last photograph of Karl Marx. Oh, people are having a fancy time with it. I think that's counter-revolutionary, maybe. He kind of looks like, you know, that painting of Jesus that woman, that old woman just went and had a go at. Alright. Oh yeah, I've read that one. Ugh. Brutal. Ow. Can you see an option for like super chats or anything? Or like giving me money? Because that would be a fancy thing. It'd almost be too fancy. And I don't know if I could stand for it. Huh. Maybe I need to be like a partner or something for that to work. Huh. You probably need, yeah. Actually, yeah, you're probably right. That makes a lot of sense. I don't know why I would assume that. I just get that. Yeah. What am I at? Let's have a look-see. $902 subscribers. And I've got 2,329 watch hours. I did find out the other day, though, that I'm pretty sure these public watch hours only count if they are from subscribers. So if you have a video that goes viral and you get a shit ton of views from it, it won't actually count towards your monetization. So that kind of sucks. I mean, I guess for YouTube it means that you have a very organic growth and an obviously engaged audience, but sucks for me. Yeah, but I did think they changed it though, because it did used to be within a 12-month period, and I think they've changed that. So oh no, stream health is bad. Terrible. Well, you know what they say. They say, down with capitalism. I am doing well. How are you doing? That's the question that I was going to ask you. So, you know, there you go. I was wondering if maybe I chuck up my scripto that I'm working on and just work on that. I have no idea if people would even find that interesting, because I wanted to just watch some dumb stuff and laugh at people like Candace Owens, or Dave the Rubens. Well, look, that's fair enough. Do that. Which one? Script or laugh at Dave Rubin? I appreciate that. Okay, let's see if we can get old Davius Rubius a goodbye. So, Dave Rubin clips.
And there's a plan to get them the education and the resources they need. Sort of like a re-education camp. Should we maybe put them in gulags or in special areas, remove them from society where we can then teach them what is good and right, where they have to bow to the state and get injected despite whatever legitimate concerns they may have? Would that be good? Maybe there would be these camps that we could build, and they would think that they were walking into a shower to be cleansed, but there would be gas. Would that be all right? You see what these people are doing. You see what these people are doing. If you think what I just said there is a little over the top, right, is like a little bit much, look at what has happened in the last year and a half, how far we have fallen. Okay, so when I say that, I don't think tomorrow she's gassing police officers, but I don't think that it actually would be too far away. When you take a certain segment of society and say they are the diseased and they might kill you, what do you think the people in power would do to them? Look at history. That is exactly what these people would do. She is not a good person. These are not good.
Wow, I mean, so yeah, as a history teacher, 100%. Wow, I wish we would look at history. Just the insane reductionist. So both the reductionist way that, I mean, lots of people, and lots of people on the right, but in particular on full display here, the way that Dave Rubin views history through this just incredibly partisan lens. And it isn't as an objective observer. It is only to reaffirm and to bolster everything that he already thinks. And that's because he is viewing everything. His epistemology is that of a narrative. He has a narrative, and everything that comes up, he needs to fit within his current narrative. And so he just assimilates the information that's going to reaffirm that, and then the information that isn't going to, he just gets rid of. And like that, he just thinks that. Oh man. Painful. Why should he be in prison? So one of the things that I've been doing lately, and it's just ridiculous, this is so terrible, so bad, but I just troll like nearly every single tweet that Paul Joseph Watson makes. It's so good. He's, oh my god, he's just the, I don't know what to say, like the most obvious grifter, whereas I think Dave Rubin, unfortunately, is not smart enough and actually believes the stuff that he is saying. Paul Joseph Watson absolutely does not. Hey, thank you very much. Yeah, that Paul Keating video, it's great, and I know that there's plenty of criticism to be leveled at Keating, but I, think he's great. And I think particularly just the fact that not just a politician, but a prime minister. Oh yeah, fuck Paul Joseph Watson. But yeah, that a prime minister would go on talkback radio and just take calls on the air about his policy that he was going to introduce and just completely cut people down. Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm a Labour supporter as well. I have a lot of views that vacillate between potentially far left and, centre left, or sock dem or dem sock. But, I think that in Australia, in the current political climate, in the current media climate, more so, I think Labour is obviously the best choice to be supporting. Greens, I think there are a lot of good policies that they have, but just as what am I trying to say? I think if you're going to get into the political arena, you have to understand what you're doing there, and grandstanding and trying to just do wedge issues, you're not going to change anything. The Greens are not going to change anything. If anything, all they're doing is, in order to get votes themselves, and this is part of, a critique of our current electoral system, I think, in order to get votes, they're taking them from Labour. And so they have to wedge Labour to the left. And unfortunately for Labour, the Murdoch press is very, very right-wing. And so what they need to do is try to not give the Murdoch press or the government any ammunition. And it's really sad, but that is the way that they need to play the game. Oh, right, yeah. So you were that was Butler's seat, wasn't it? Yeah, I'm in Queensland too. I'm just a couple of hours north of Brisbane. Yeah, right. Not Butler. Who am I thinking of? Absolutely. On election night, Stephen Miles. I think Stephen Miles is great. He's also the leader of Labour Left faction in Queensland. Stephen is great, and he was on one of the panels going through it, and he said, I think it was, who's that Liberal senator? He had cancer, and now he's in America. Sinodinos, I think. I think it was him, and he said, the Liberals with their preferences gave that seat to a Green. So I think if you are going down the electoral politics route in Australia, 100% you should be supporting Labor. And obviously that doesn't mean that you aren't critical of Labor, but I also think that it's important that you understand the game. You can see it a bit with people's reaction to AOC and stuff in America. Like, she's working within the system, and to work within the system, it's obviously going to be reform instead of revolution. She can't go in guns blazing because it's not going to get her anywhere. She has to be pragmatic. And I think that if you have to recognize that AOC, isn't going to overthrow the entire American system. Donald Trump, the sitting president, with his, bunch of fanatics, couldn't even overthrow the system back in January. What hope does, a few lefty 20-something or 30-something year olds have? I think you have to be pragmatic about the approach you're taking. No, yeah, and that's exactly right. I think you need to... And what it seems to me is the best leftist electoral politicians also do so much groundwork within their communities, within their electorates, but also within more grassroots organizing. And I think that is exactly how you have to go down that path. And I think that's whether or not you are involving yourself in electoral politics or you are trying to do something more radical. I think getting in at the ground level and getting into whether you're going to call it, you know, grassroots support or you're going to call it mutual aid, I think either one of those is exactly the focus that you need to take. Oh, I can't believe it. I don't know if you have the United Australia Party billboards in Brisbane. They are just insanely ridiculous. Oh yeah, absolutely. It's hilarious because every day I go and check the Australian website just to see what the spin is, and holy shit, they they take every chance they get to try and tear down Anastasia Palaszczuk, but it's not working. Like, even the Courier Mail, you know, the one print newspaper that we now still have in Queensland, apart from the Australian, but you know, the Courier Mail, it's just like trying to blast her every single day, and it is not sticking because people can see New South Wales and Victoria and, you know, other parts of the world, particularly America. And we've had 7 deaths in Queensland from COVID out of a population of 5 million people. It's people, you know, there are definitely some conversations to be had about, you know, financial support and businesses that were affected, and there are lots of things like that. But that doesn't mean that the public health policies that were implemented were not successful and not popular. They are super popular. And yeah, the LNP's got to be super scared about losing their federal Liberal seats in Queensland next year at the election, or even December if Scott Morrison decides to pull the trigger early. But yeah, oh man, the anti-vax stuff, it's insane. Like, we don't have all these lockdowns. Yeah, oh yeah, the whole living with COVID, it's been interesting to see how the through line, you know, the rhetoric has changed over time as each kind of thing hasn't stuck. And they've had to change the way that they're talking about it. You know, all the opinion columnists for Murdoch. When, you know, that whole live with COVID thing, people just went, wait, you know, this isn't America. We're not just going to die for, you know, business profits. Oh, yeah, the anti-vax stuff we had in our little town. Oh, at the Freedom Rally or whatever the shit that was. Huge turnout. You know, people talking about human rights when, you know, I guarantee they don't know the first thing about human rights. People talking about the Constitution. That's the funniest thing to me, is they have all of this, the weight of the American cultural reverence for their Constitution, and they try and apply it to the Australian Constitution, which is just such a dry, legalistic document, just basically setting out, you know, what powers the federal government is going to take over and what powers the states are going to have. Blood clots. Oh, that whole my body, my choice thing, the way that they have taken up that that catch cry from, you know, pro-choice advocates is just insane, just super disgusting. I really hate that, because also they don't believe that. Like, they actually don't believe, you know, my body, my choice. So it's just ridiculous. And yeah, it's the the whole Constitution thing is just so good. I don't know if you've seen Tom Tanuki, but he does this great. And burgling. Hello to you too. Yeah, Tom Tanuki does this great satire of all of those kinds of anti-lockdown people with their ridiculous talking about the Constitution, holding it up, talking about the freedoms of Australia, basically thinking they're Mel Gibson in The Patriot or something, just with a bunch of Southern Cross tattoos. Oh, yeah, so that's what I was saying earlier. It's just, I just troll nearly every single Paul Joseph Watson post. So what did I say here? So Paul Joseph Watson, climate change activists from Extinction Rebellion who are actually furthering the establishment narrative on climate change expressed shock that they weren't in prison despite repeatedly blocking major roads and causing accidents. To which I replied the same way we expressed shock that your dad, Alex Jones, isn't in prison. And then this very smart person said, why should he be in prison? So, what should I reply? Underbelly. Yeah, go for it. Underbelly as in the TV show? Zoom in a bit. Touche. Sorry. There we go. Is that better? Hopefully that will be a bit better in a second. I am indeed still... This is basically my first streamo. Oh yeah, that's a bit better. There we go. Sorry, I know if you watch or like Friendly Joddies, but he did a thing about nuclear energy a while ago and debated this guy called... Oh, yes, no, I saw that. He was doing the Steven Crowder change my mind thing. Yeah, that is hilarious. I don't know, because I'm pretty sure he did a follow-up video to that. Did he find out that that guy had purposefully come down to do that? I left a nice comment. Why should he be in prison? Oh, yes, that's right. No, I vividly remember listening to that one. Yeah, that is insane, the level of influence that the Koch brothers have. I mean, and all of those, basically Koch brothers think tank. Yeah, the amount of money that they can just pour into this culture war stuff, essentially, that helps to either further or cover up their economic agenda. And it was, it's like Friendly Joddies always says about Murdoch, running his papers at a loss to essentially be able to set the discourse for the day. And there was a great interview that Friendly Joddies did with Michael West, that independent journalist, and he is a super, super clever dude, and the amount of stuff that he was talking about just blew my mind. Yeah, but Satyajit appeared on the bench. Oh really? Was this recently? That's ridiculous. I wonder if I can find that. Ben Shapiro. I see. Satya G. Ben Shapiro, I don't know if I... Oh, sent the link. Where did you send the link? It didn't come through. I wonder if maybe I don't get links? Ben Shapiro. there's this great streamer called RN Brown. One of the I would say one of the funniest dudes on the left on YouTube. And he's got like his little soundboard, and he's just a funny guy. Super good. Okay, yeah, I can't see the link anywhere. I wonder if I just find it. Is it Australia's COVID lockdown rules are insane? Oh, wait, Satyamara. Here we go. Okay. The YouTuber. It is. I'll show you. R.M. Brown, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, R.M. Brown. Super good. Definitely go and check him out. Oh, and that that Charlie Kirk dolphin fetus thing. Okay, yeah, cool. Shoot it through on Twitter. Oh, Young Voices. Yes, okay. That's it then. Let's have a little watch.
Australia is currently experiencing a case wave in terms of COVID-19, but not a death wave in terms of COVID-19. Right now, their 7-day rolling average of death in Australia, which is a country of some 25 million people, is 4. They've been having 3 or 4 deaths a day. And yet, the measures that they have been taking in order to crack down on people's basic freedoms are absolutely...
Okay. Okay, this is just going to turn into a little response. Muscular class. The muscular class. Oh, it's so good. Young Voices is a Coke think tank. They don't disclose their funding to hide the fact that Coke... Oh, of course. Of course. So I refuse to believe that Ben Shapiro right now cannot see a link between what he just said. They're having 3 to 4... Did he say cases a day? Or did he say deaths?
They've been having 3 or 4 deaths a day.
Yeah, okay. I mean, what was this? A couple of months ago? August? A couple of months ago. So yeah, it has gone up. But the reason... Oh my god. The reason that we are having 3 or 4 deaths a day is because of the policies. It is because of the vaccinations. It's because of the social distancing. It is because of the lockdowns. It is because of a lot of different public policy measures. And like I said earlier, you know, not an apologist for police violence, obviously, and there are certainly ways that, you know, small businesses and people's jobs and lots of things like that, the way that that's been handled has been really, really poorly handled. But just to say that okay, let's go. Sorry, otherwise we're never going to get through this 13 minutes. If you are, I hope you are here for just wild tangents and ranting, because that is exactly what you're going to get. Have you read Abolish Silicon Valley? I haven't. I'll bring that up just so I've got it there for later. Alright, let's get through this.
And yet, the measures that they have been taking in order to crack down on people's basic freedoms are absolutely insane. I mean, it looks like some sort of outtake from a dystopian film. Apparently, over the weekend, Australian rescue dogs were shot dead over COVID-19 lockdown restrictions. Several dogs slated to be rescued, according to the New York Post, were shot dead in rural Australia due to a local council's interpretation of the country's COVID-19 lockdown restrictions. Apparently, the pups were executed to prevent volunteers in an animal shelter from traveling to pick up and rescue the animals last week and potentially spreading the virus at the same time.
Okay, I don't know if that's true. Potentially that is true. Something that I just saw this morning was how the Republicans in America, they've got their, you know, bloody Fauci thing going on. And they're now saying how, you know, they're being all emotive about how some pups got killed or something bizarre like that. Alrighty, I am back. So I'm just gonna go down through here. Did you see? Yeah, I know he speaks so fast already, and on 1.25 speed, he just looks like he is on crack. Yeah, basic freedoms. It. Did you see Candace Owens' call to the president to invade Australia and eliminate? Yes, it's been doing the rounds over in Australia. It is very, very hilarious, and everybody's having a good time with it. I'm sure there are sections of the anti-vax right that have taken that up and loving that. There was that rally in New York City, I think it was last week as well, people protesting outside of the Australian embassy. Just hilarious. I love it. What's the story with your username? I can't remember. Only dog on the left. I think I was just trying to come up with something that that was a little bit unique, and I landed on that. It was a bit silly, but since then, people just continually point out how Radical Reviewer is a dog, and call me out for it, you know, in a nice little way. And yeah, I think it's cool. It's stuck. Although when I go and post on, you know, the capitalism subreddit, I just get, you know, called a rats owner and stuff. But that's fine. They they are hilarious anyway. I made that video today. That's how I found out about the whole thing. Yeah. Oh, I must have been listening to it this morning or something then. It's just hilarious. Check my nest. Yeah, I think they must have gotten rid of your comment. Pretty hilarious. Although I will say, depending on... Oh no, there it is. Sick Coke Brothers funny guest who isn't even living in Australia. Oh, isn't he? Is he overseas in the moment, is he? That would explain a lot. As well as Sad doing his classic tactic lying. Coke... Nice. I'm dumb, never mind. Turns out you're the Coke funded association. Carry on your corruption. That's excellent. Ben, come help us fight this injustice. If Australia wants to fight China by using crap like the habeas corpus writ, then perhaps they ought to amend it to read habeas corpus, and here is the price list for the corpus parts. I have no idea what that means. The teenagers could pass the virus to their parents who do get affected by the virus. Yeah, I mean, yep. Can't even spell there, and they understand. Stream is only 720. That's brutal. I wonder... It says excellent connection. That sucks. Maybe I zoom in. Bah. You don't live in Australia, so please don't comment on something you know nothing about. We are fine, thank you. To all the people saying they live in Australia and we're handling it just fine. No, we are not. We are really not. These lockdowns are such bull. Look, I can certainly sympathize with people that are, you know, stuck in lockdown. That's rough. He does live there. Was there for the entire past year. Only got out a week before this interview. Maybe you're fine. Your neighbors aren't. Okay, I live here too, you fucking asshole government chill, and I actually care about rights. You can sell yours if you want. And this whole thing about rights that's crept in, this, you know, cultural imperialism, just taking up all of the culture war bullshit from America. I mean, they're very good at exporting it, I gotta say. Why would you need to live in a country to know something about it? He has access to all the same media as we do. Satyajit went from the Australian Taxpayers Alliance. Oh, did he? Oh, God. Controlled by someone connected to Coke Industries. Set up a similar group in the UK to you guys. I know because of a guy who literally got famous off of talking about people from high school reviewing reality TV and dressing up as some Turkish kid in you in high school. That said, who are Young Voices funded by? Lol, conspiracy. Still living, but please protest and spread it around. Then complain about the government. Is there an anti-vax movement in Australia? Yeah, there is, unfortunately. I mean, it's kind of small. But it's stupidly loud. And the unfortunate thing is that the far right weirdo fringe politicians have latched onto it because they can see that there's a groundswell of people that are worried about something, and they're just all opportunists. So yeah, it's pretty sad. Alright, let's keep listening. Oh, wait a second. I don't think I got through everybody's comments here. Move to Washington. Q Traveler has the right idea. Yep. Alright.
So that is delightful. Joining us on the line to discuss all this is Satya Marar. He is a Sydney and Washington, D.C. based policy writer and foreign-trained legal professional. He writes extensively on economics and international relations and civil liberties, and he's just returned from Australia. Satya, thanks so much for joining the show. Appreciate it.
Hey, Ben, thanks for having me on.
So can you give us an update on what's going on in Australia? Because they've done pretty well in terms of keeping down the deaths. They're a giant island, so I mean that basically helps. But they've been locked down for basically a year and a half, and it seems like things are getting worse over there.
I mean, one of the things, because I'm in Queensland as well, as Call Me Liam, and this reference just to Australia or the Australian government, and it's all Washington based, and it is all just like each state has its own response. Each state is responsible for its police and for its health services and its public services, which is also why Labor tends to be in power a lot more at the state level than at the federal level. It's just ridiculous. Question: are you a socialist? I would say yes. I think that now I don't know what kind of. I'm probably a market socialist, I'd say. I like what's his name? Richard Wolff. I think his Marxian analysis is really good. I'm not a Marxist. I haven't read Marx. I'm not pro-communist regimes. People have said little c communism, like anarcho-communism or libertarian socialist. I'd probably say I'm more libertarian socialist, like George Orwell, but then also pragmatically, like I was saying before. I'm more dem sock dem. And yeah, I mean, Queensland, 100% socially conservative, but yeah, absolutely. We just get Labor more because they deliver on services. I remember some story about the NRA training some conservative. Oh yeah, yeah, that was a big expose thing that happened. That was people from these fringe. The One Nation Party that went over and trying to get a bunch of funding from the NRA to try to influence Australia's policy, drag us to the right and try and push for gun rights. But I mean, in Australia in the late 90s, the gun laws were put in place by our conservative government. It was after we had a shooting. I think Port Arthur was... let me just double check. How many people died? Mass shooting, which 35 people were killed and 23 others wounded. 96. And yeah, after that, all of Australia just went, oh, no way. And our conservative Prime Minister implemented those gun restrictions and the gun buybacks. And he's been on, I think it was a couple of years ago, but he was interviewed on Fox News talking about exactly that. And, how Australia and America were very culturally different about that. Oh, thank you. That I've been meaning to make more Paulo Freire videos. It's just so dense that I really want to have the time to do it justice. Yeah. One Nation did not get anywhere with that. Oh yeah, Australia. I am pretty sure I sound incredibly Australian. Speaking of Australian, let's listen to some more of this wonderful Australian guest.
Yeah, absolutely. So, for a long time, for the first 1.5 years of this pandemic, Australia had some very tough restrictions internally, lockdowns that went on for 1 or 2 months at a time, that seemed to eventually bring the outbreak of the pandemic under control. And we had border closures, we had 2 weeks of quarantine for anyone who flew into the country. But the latest outbreak of Delta, which began in Sydney towards the end of June, has put Sydney into a lockdown that has gone on for 2 months. And
okay. I did pause it before he finished, but is he going to say that it's because Gladys Berejiklian did not lock down soon enough because she was worried about the economy and because she was worried about, being the gold standard that Scott Morrison was trying to show off to the rest of Australia in his big push? You do sound incredibly Australian. Yeah, I thought so. In Scott Morrison's big push for saying, look, you don't have to lock down. Sydney, New South Wales has done it. Look at this. You don't have to shut down like these bloody Labor premiers. And then, so she didn't shut down soon enough. He won't, I promise you. Yeah. Okay, good. I didn't think he was going to. Yeah. But that is exactly why, because she didn't lock down soon enough, and then it spread, and then it spread to Victoria, obviously. But it didn't spread to Queensland because, well, it did a little bit, but we just locked down the border, and then we had lockdowns at the Gold Coast and in Brisbane and through the LGAs to the Sunshine Coast. I mean, it's public policy. All right, let's have a look.
Probably keep going further. And despite the fact there have been some very harsh restrictions in place, you can't travel more than a few miles from your own house to exercise. You can't even congregate with any more than one person who isn't from your household outdoors, when you go out and exercise. And there are very few exceptions for leaving your house, and the police enforce them very strictly with up to $5,000 or even more in fines. And you're finally seeing thousands of people come out on the streets in Melbourne or Sydney to protest. The police have put them down very harshly using rubber bullets and tear gas a few days ago. It's absolutely terrible. And the thing is, despite this...
So I have a video about this. It's the RV Yemeni one that I put out a couple of weeks ago. And it has a bunch of stuff from Tom Tanuki about, RV being a ridiculous grifter. But I go through one of Van Badham's articles where she outlines how, and this is following the CFMEU, protest with all the, bloody tradies, quote unquote tradies with their very brand new looking high vis jackets, that it's, just basic co-opting of the labor movement. And, like before, the whole co-opting of the my body, my choice rhetoric, it's just fucking infuriating. You won't say Gladys did right. Oh, of course you won't know. I haven't seen this. Did a little, yeah, now we're out. Yeah, 100%. Being outside the US, I'm curious as to what you see that is so different about the US than Australia and European sockdom governments. Why do you think we're so insane here? That's a very good question. I think a lot of it has to do with American exceptionalism. I did a little video on that a while ago as well. I think just that notion that seems to be so... It just seems at the root of so much about the American psyche. And not individuals, but the American cultural psyche, that America is just uniquely special. And that because of that, they don't have to look to other countries. But at the same time, thanks to Reagan and the privatization and the just massive amount of money there, and the power of business lobbies, with the Coke stuff, like the Democrats, Joe Biden, he would be our right-wing party here. Even our right-wing party, says, of course, we support Medicare, which is our, universal health insurance. Of course, we support, Centrelink, which is our social welfare system, even though they're always, taking shots at dole bludgers whenever they can. Trying to just blame poor people for it. But it's just, I think it, I don't know if it has something to do with the huge groundswell of Protestantism and evangelism in America as well. Like our current Prime Minister is an evangelist, and there's been a bit said about that, and it's prosperity gospel. So, I don't know. Also, when I was mentioning Reagan before, I also thought of Thatcher, but even in England, they've got universal health insurance. Their right wing, the Conservative Party over there, isn't going to go out and try and get rid of the NHS. I don't know. There's just a big cultural divide. I wonder if you guys can think of anything either, why the US is so radically different. I remember I had a friend go to a climate protest and Harvey interviewed him. He destroyed Harvey, and Harvey didn't air the interview. He got a video of it, of him asking him why he won't air it. That's excellent. That would be so good to see. It's not why we think US people are insane. It's more that why does America not give basic healthcare and other workers' rights? Yeah, I mean, to the rest of the world, it just seems very bizarre the way that the conversation is framed as, like you're going to turn into a socialist hellhole if people can go to the hospital and not go bankrupt from it. It's just so bizarre. That too, though, somewhat. Yeah, like even when we have a shit party in power, but they claim to support Medicare whilst pumping money. Yeah, absolutely. And, Howard's, I think Friendly Geordies did a video about, private health insurance and the all of that kind of stuff. Certainly, we do have that push for privatization. The previous, LNP government in Queensland was super big on privatization. But yeah, they can't, so rhetorically, they can't just come out and say that they are against, universal healthcare, and, social welfare and stuff like that. So much different. We're all under the same idiotic US Euro empire. It's the same capitalists in power everywhere doing imperialism through the IMF, World Bank. Yeah, I mean, also the amount of actual power that, any political party actually has to change their nation, when we are just so ensconced in a globalized system currently. Kind of depressing. Do I remember our PM also shit his pants at Nicotine McDonald's? He did in 1994, as the rumor goes. I think there have been people that work there that have come out and said that it happened. But yeah, our Prime Minister did shit his pants at Nicotine McDonald's. Have you heard of the term magical volunteerism? It's like modern day prosperity goal. I haven't. What is that about? It sounds terrible. It sounds like something that Glenn Beck would have gone on about. Recent articles mention that UK wished to sell their NHS to... Oh, absolutely. And I'm sure behind the scenes in Australia there'd be, Liberal Party politicians that are trying to privatise off Medicare. Absolutely, they would love that. I feel like the NDIS is an attempt at that. But yeah, we'll have to see where that ends up. US corporations. Oh yeah, and I mean... Also, I think the fact that America has been imperialistic and has had such a huge link between their corporations, their transnational corporations, and their military, going into particularly South America throughout the 20th century. And then, on the back of that, needing to propagandize back to the American public that they're doing the right thing. So that also probably has a lot to do with it. Religious zealots for sure. Media is similar with Rupert Murdoch. I would say the media landscape here is way worse than America. I saw about a month ago, I think. So we have Sky News, which is a Murdoch TV channel. We didn't used to have Murdoch TV channel. He owned all the newspapers here, but they changed the media laws so that he could acquire more of that, and they're actually going to change Sky News channel to Fox News. They're like the brand, the name, and it's just full of the most ridiculous reactionary idiots. It's just so infuriating to watch. And so in our state, so Liam and I's state, Queensland, the only physical newspaper that exists is owned by Rupert Murdoch. So he has just 100% saturation for whatever bullshit he wants to spread. And yeah, like we were saying before, the centre-left party is in power here, and it has been for a while. Even though he's got that complete saturation and that complete monopoly on the print media here, he still can't knock it down. I'm from Holland, and we're starting to have much more neoliberal policies here. We have a housing crisis, billionaire financialization, the housing stock problem, massive student loans. Yeah, I mean, the housing market is just so ridiculous at the moment. I'm pretty sure the town that I live has the highest, what was it? It's definitely in Australia, the biggest housing market growth. You know, they say growth, I mean is increase in prices. It definitely is for Australia, and I think I read that it was globally as well. It's just mental. And I've seen in America that they've started trading on houses, like huge like hedge funds and stuff investing in like housing. Is that also what's happening in Holland? That's just absolutely ridiculous. Brisbane Broncos beat the Sharkies. That's hilarious. My dad's from New South Wales. He's from Sydney, and he goes for the Sharks, and he's just so disgusted every time that we bring up that Scott Morrison flipped, when he got moved out to his cushy seat, his safe seat, and started going for the Sharks, because he was going for... I forget who he was going for. But yeah, he's just a slimy little grifter. Privatization of healthcare, etc. Yeah, absolutely. It's just an endless steamroller, just continually happening. The corporate takeover of government is definitely a huge problem by killing unions, but it just feels like I see other governments act like they care about the people in the country, and here it doesn't. I feel like the political system in the US also prohibits that a lot. With this is it the infrastructure bill that Joe Biden's trying to pass at the moment? And he's having to walk back so many things because of, is it cinema and mansion? And he said, with 50 senators, with only 50 Democratic senators, every one of them is a president, meaning that any single one of them can just veto and sink the entire thing. That would never happen in Australia. And also the amount of, I would say party disunity in the American system, that wouldn't happen in Australia. Like, if you were voting against the party, when the party wanted you to vote a certain way, they would kick you out of the party, and make you go and sit on the crossbench and not be a part of the government anymore. So I feel like that kind of thing is also indicative. But America has like 500 and something representatives in Congress, don't they? That is an insanely huge amount. I think we have in Australia, in our lower house, we have 150. A lot more manageable. Magical volunteerism. By Mark Fisher. The idea is, with the expert help of your therapist or counselor, you can change the world you are in. The last analysis responsible for, so that it no longer causes you distress. Small calls this view. Magical volunteerism. Depression is the shadow side of entrepreneurial culture. What happens when magical volunteerism confronts limited opportunities? Radical therapist David Small argues that Thatcher's view that there's no such thing as a society, only individuals and their families, finds an unacknowledged echo in almost all approaches to therapy. The psychologist Oliver James put it in his book The Selfish Capitalist: in the entrepreneurial fantasy society, we are taught that only the affluent are winners, and that access to the top is open to anyone willing to work hard enough, regardless of their familial, ethnic, or social structure. If you do not succeed, there's only one person to blame. Absolutely. I mean, it's that justification that they've managed to, their justification for their place in the hierarchy, that they've managed to drill into everyone. That, we exist in this meritocracy. And then on the flip side of that is depression. 100%. I think that's a pretty good analysis. Magical voluntarism. Yeah, I've got Capitalist Realism by Mark Fisher, but I got it a few years ago and I started reading it, and I think there's only 6 chapters. I got through the first and realized that I had not taken anything in, because the concepts for where my head was at the time just flew over me. It's high time that we had blame placed elsewhere. We need to reverse the privatization of stress and recognize that mental health is a political issue. Absolutely. And I was at a conference a couple of weeks ago, because I'm a teacher, and it was about it was like a film conference, but they had a disability advocate there, and she was talking about the move away from the medical notion of the medical conception of disability towards a social conception. The medical conception is it's an individual problem that the individual has to overcome and then figure out how they're going to, in a limited capacity, fit into society, as opposed to the social model, which views disability as something that society needs to cater for. And I thought that was such a great concept, and one that I hadn't heard of. Just going up a bit, yeah, but there are probably more, and they are not doing enough to message the bill to the people. Oh, also, absolutely, I see all the memes about, the Democrats having, if only, what was it Georgia? I think that they were really, the runoff race in Georgia or something, and it's like, this needs to be the big priority because we need to get, control of the Senate. And they did that, and they're just doing nothing with it. I absolutely think that I think the Republicans are a lot better with it. With that party unity or discipline, like in Australia and in the UK system, and probably in other European systems, they have a party whip that comes around and tells you how you're going to vote along the party lines, and they just can't get it. All right. Yeah, I'll have to. I lent Capitalist Realism to a friend. I'll have to get it back and have another go at reading it. All right, let's keep going with Satya.
So we're still seeing hundreds of new cases every single day, and the government's response to this isn't to cut the people some slack and say, okay, look, this isn't doing as well as what we thought it would. It is to keep pursuing the strategies they have in place and to tighten the restrictions even further.
Now, one of the things that's very odd about Australia is that despite all of this focus on lockdowns, the percentage of the population that's fully vaccinated remains pretty low. I believe it's only about
20. Anyway, there was this comment here. There's an insane divide among conservatives and liberals in the States caused by right-wing media and politicians warping reality for the hogs. Feels like the only way we can come together is union strikes. Yeah, and thanks to mass casualization and great propaganda campaigns, unionism is at an all-time low across the world. But as we've seen in India and currently in a lot of places in America, John Deere, Kellogg's, union strikes are a valid way to assert, collective bargaining. I definitely always urge people to join their union. I'm a union rep in my job. I think it's super powerful. But that thing about the divide between conservatives and liberals because of the right-wing media, it doesn't really happen in Australia, but in America I've definitely seen it, and it's with QAnon and this whole focus on and at like the school board meetings, you know, mask mandates and stuff, this really big focus on pedophilia. Like, everyone that they disagree with, everyone that the right disagrees with is like a secret satanic pedophile. Can anybody explain that? It is bizarre. IATSC. Just don't know what that is. Oh, yeah, no, that's right. I did see that. Wasn't that part of the reason that Alec Baldwin's had such shitty people working on that Rust film? Because all of the unionized workers left that morning because they were worried about the safety or something. Anyway, it's a well-oiled machine in the right-wing media sphere. Yeah, it's just bizarre that the whole satanic pedophile thing is their go-to. It's like I also guess it's because of the depth of like religiosity in America and religious conservatism. That's just an easy emotive thing to go to. Like, in Australia, if you're talking about pedophilia, the very first thing that comes to mind is the Catholic Church, which is a huge institution, like cultural institution in Australia. And yeah, so yeah, the right doesn't seem to take that up as much. There have been articles about, like from Andrew Bolton stuff, defending pedophile. Oh man, the right's just ridiculous. All right.
25% of the population in Australia is actually fully vaccinated at this point, as compared with the evil, horrible United States, in which well over 70% of the population that's adult is vaccinated at this point. So why aren't more people vaccinated in Australia?
Well, in some ways, we're the victims of our own success and also of our own, our government's complacency and incompetence, really. So around June of last year, health officials from our government met up with officials from Pfizer. This was around the same time that the US placed in orders for tons of Pfizer vaccines. At the time, Australia actually didn't go ahead with it. They ended up ordering a much smaller batch of that months down the track. We threw all our eggs into the AstraZeneca basket, which was unfortunate because, you ideally want to have many different sources of vaccines. And the government simply didn't see the need to roll it out, that quickly. A lot of young people.
Wow. The way that he's talking about this, the government just didn't see the need, and we threw all our eggs in this basket. I mean, it's because he's now talking about the federal government that he loves, that he backs. It's just the one thing that I want to do, because I teach persuasion at school, is to go through the persuasive techniques and the rhetorical techniques of all these people. I really want to do it on that video that R.M. Brown did, with the woman with the bloody dog on her lap, and they're like, Fauci killed dogs. Oh, so sad. Like, yeah, it's sad. Like, I'm vegan, so yeah, I'm obviously not for it, but this ridiculous bullshit that they just like are trying to smear Fauci, it's so weird. Like, I don't get this fascination with like individuals in the American system. I mean, actually, I think I do, because it helps to explain away systemic issues by pointing out the one evil person that's, behind the scenes, and you pull the mask off and it's like, haha, we got you, Fauci. You're the one evil person, and, now we can get rid of you and the world will be right again. Instead of having to face the reality of that systemic issues exist, and you're going to have a systemic response to them, which is a lot harder than just pretending that Fauci is, yeah, exactly, one bad apple. We can get rid of that one bad apple, and then everything else is going to be fine. It's an easy, it's a very childlike way of viewing the world. However, it's very useful if you benefit from the status quo. If you were, the Koch brothers, if you, Ben Shapiro, who's making so much money, he's got like what the top number. He's got the #1 Facebook site or something. Daily Wire. I think it was some more news that did a bit of a deep dive into that, and all the weird, sketchy things that Facebook and Ben Shapiro have set up together. And repeated from the Fox News host to the guy in his garage doing a podcast, and he's the same exact language. So it just hypnotized the right. Absolutely, that's interesting. Actually, that there's like this like an echo throughout that ecosystem. Ben Shapiro is the new Alex Jones. Yeah, I'd vouch for that, 100%.
People were lining up for vaccines, unable to get an appointment. And a lot of older people also thought, well, you know what? Community spread is almost nothing, thanks to border quarantines and so on. So, we'll be fine. We don't need to hurry this up. It's not a race. The comments, it's not a race, were actually used by our Prime Minister. He now regrets that deeply. So it's all fine until it wasn't. And now, not even 40% of our population is vaccinated. And the government has said, until we get to 80%, lockdowns are still going to be a fact of life. Now, I'm sorry, but we're not going to get there for months.
Yeah, I mean, that is an insane statement, given the fact that the kind of lockdowns you've been talking about. I was watching the tape earlier today from 9 News in Australia, and they're talking about individuals who have been quarantined. If they go down an elevator and then they just walk out the front door, now there's like national manhunt on for people who have COVID-19. You have teenagers who are congregated on beaches. Teenagers, by the way, are not dying from COVID-19, like anywhere. Okay, COVID-19.
So this is one thing that I really dislike about the the right's approach to this, is this argument about deaths. And they just point to this very decontextualized statistics about, deaths about it. And they say, well, there's only 0.01% deaths or some shit like this. But one, they don't take into account the fact that it's a pandemic and that this virus spreads and that it isn't going to be a linear spread. If you let it get away from you, the spread is not linear. It's not just 1 and then 2 and then 3. It's going to get more exponential. The other thing is, when that happens, that your health services are put under so much pressure that people are then not just dying from COVID, but they are dying from other preventable illnesses and diseases that the health system is suddenly not able to cope with. And the third one is now what we're seeing is long COVID, is the long-lasting effects of having this serious respiratory illness, which obviously, and there's so many stories coming out about it, that just having such a reductionist view and going, well, teenagers don't even die of it, so therefore, and they always leave that conclusion hanging. It's like Jordan Peterson, he makes these statements that are kind of correct and then just leaves the conclusion up to you, but he's weaved his narrative in such a way that you come to the conclusion that he wants, but without him having to actually say it. I think people gravitate to this fascist movement because it's a way to never have to self-reflect. Deadly Cope. Yeah, absolutely. If you think that everything that you're doing is right, and if you think that the system we have in place is good and moral and efficient, but then, the world is still bad, then obviously it's satanic pedophile liberals, or it's, immigrants or something. Whole appeal of fascism is you can follow it mindlessly. Yeah.
Does not affect young people in the same way it affects older people. The total number of people in the United States under the age of 18, for example, who have died of COVID-19 remains at 361 out of a subpopulation of 73 million in the United States, which again is almost 3 times the entire population of Australia. So you have 8 teenagers who are being arrested and fined $1,000 for being on the beach, like in the middle of the night outside. And yet, how many members of the Australian population are willing to go along with these restrictions at this point? Are there any poll numbers demonstrating any sort of blowback to this?
Look, from the polling, there's not been that much polling yet, to be honest, but from what we've seen on social media, there seems to be wide public support for these restrictions, broadly speaking. In fact, it seems a lot of people would much rather blame the few thousands who are slowly growing and turning out to protest against what's happening than they would like to blame the government, who are actually responsible for this imprisonment strategy that has been...
Okay, yeah. The vast majority of Australians are supportive of the lockdowns, they're supportive of public policy, health policy initiatives, because we don't have this mindset like the Americans do. And what he said there, they'd much rather, I think the majority of Australians would much rather blame the few thousand people coming in to protest rather than the government. And I thought he was going to say, the government who screwed up not getting enough vaccinations, who screwed up the border, who screwed up the Ruby Princess. But he's not saying that. Who screwed up the lockdowns?
much rather blame the few thousands who are slowly growing and turning out to protest against what's happening than they would like to blame the government who are actually responsible for this imprisonment strategy that has been imposed on us. And what people don't seem to understand is that
he just said two different things. People would rather blame the people that are coming out to protest, which is going to spread the virus, instead of blaming the government for locking us down. Those are two separate issues. The people that are blaming the government for locking you down are the people out protesting. This is so bizarre. This chasing ghosts that you can never defeat, yeah, which will always give you an out to point to and blame for the problems they don't want to have to own up to. Yeah, I mean, it's like those doomsday cults, you know, when the religious people say, you know, the end of the world is coming in, you know, 26th of November. And then the 26th of November comes and it's like, oh, actually, it's coming the 1st of January. And it doesn't actually deter them. It's just like, oh, good, we don't have to actually, you know, get rid of everything that we've invested in it. My friend did his PhD in psychology and was looking at the sunk cost fallacy. And he was specifically looking at it in children. And kids don't have it. They can go and put a whole bunch of effort into something. And if it's not working out, they can just go, oh, well, shrug their shoulders and walk away from it. Adults, yeah, we get invested in this stuff. Have you all seen WorldCoin? It's a Silicon Valley cryptocurrency that you get access to if you let them collect a biometric iris scan, which is a so-called orb. That's weird. I mean, the amount of, you know, shit that, like, data that companies are trading about people, you know, the whole, if you're not paying for it, you are the product. It's bizarre. Definitely, yeah, would not want a biometric iris scan for a cryptocurrency company in Silicon Valley. That's nuts. It serves the right's agenda to frame this as a freedom and authoritarianism issue rather than a health issue. What it does is try to alienate people from the government and collective action. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's a very good take. Yeah, and the whole freedom and authoritarianism, like, this is all new rhetoric in Australia. Like, the whole freedom, like, that's never been a catch cry in Australia. Like, we have social responsibility, we have civic duties, we have notions about, you know, like mateship and, you know, the Anzac spirit and going and, like, sacrificing for a lost cause, basically. And looking out for the people around you. It's just like individual freedom is just bizarre as this American concept. And the Comet cult was crazy. Cults are fascinating. I just don't like living 20% of being in one. Yeah. When really most of the issues we have is due to the lack of response to the pandemic by capital. 100%. It doesn't have health and well-being of people at the heart of what it does. Yeah. And you see in the government, neoliberal governments have not been able to respond effectively to the pandemic because they can't. That's not what they're there for. It's why in Australia, the states, which are not responsible for the economy, have been able, well, not responsible for the economy as much as the federal government. It's why the states have been able to handle it a lot better. And it's because the states are responsible for service delivery. They're responsible for, you know, health services. And they would have looked at their modeling and said, oh crap, if this starts spreading exponentially, we're going to have such an insane crush on health services. We're not going to be able to cope. And I have a friend who's an RN in Brisbane in the infectious disease ward. And like, they were already under pressure with, you know, lack of funding before the pandemic hit. So the government definitely would have, the state governments, the service providers definitely would have known that the writing was on the wall about the need to contain it.
This really isn't as simple as even getting to that 80% target that the government has arbitrarily set. Israel is one of the few countries that's made it that far, and even they are seeing 19 people still die in hospital a day. So
this, like I said earlier, I'm always arguing with Paul Joseph Watson. Well, I'm always trolling his tweets and then arguing with his supporters underneath it and this is one of the things that they always point out, and they're like, oh, well, Israel's really, highly vaccinated, and they're still dying. And I just say, that's not the only variable. That's not the only thing that you do. Vaccinations are not a silver bullet. Like, they're part of a public policy response to a pandemic, to a health crisis. You don't just say, well, everyone's vaccinated, everyone can do what they want, and that's it. You still have to, have lockdowns when necessary. You still have to have social distancing. You probably have quarantine. It's just... I did pause him once again before he finished his thought, but I really doubt he's going to go on to say, but Israel has not been implementing other public policy initiatives to help curb the spread. It's just like, well, highly vaccinated, with, again, the implication left hanging, but the implication is that, well, the vaccines don't work, so what are we hanging out for? And also, we shouldn't have lockdowns?
So unless you're willing to change and abandon the zero COVID strategy, which all but one of our major governors are yet to abandon, it's going to keep getting worse. And unfortunately, the media, some sections of the media haven't been great about this either. They've tried to, portray all the protesters.
See, he just said all but one of our governors. Like, I know he's speaking to an American audience. Surely they can learn a new word. Surely he could have said premiers. Because we don't have governors. We have governor generals, but they are a very different role. Oh my god. This guy's so annoying.
As being far-right conspiracy theorists or anti-vax extremists. Some of them might be, but many of these are people from low-income backgrounds, from the suburbs, from immigrant backgrounds, working-class people who actually...
Yeah, who have been misled and who have been fed just such bullshit propaganda. While the federal government did not re-implement job seeker and JobKeeper payments for people that had lost their jobs, for people that had to close down their businesses. And so these were people that were struggling economically. And then these weird populist, fascist, fucking anti-vaxxers come in. And, it's propaganda. Sorry, this guy's fucking sick. So, what are these people's end goal with this anti-vaccine and mask rhetoric? It just seems not to make much sense, even if for capitalistic-centric viewpoints. Yeah, I don't know. And that's why I think that the majority of people that get swept up in it don't understand. Because I guarantee Ben Shapiro is vaccinated. I guarantee this dude is vaccinated. He probably would have had to be vaccinated, actually, to leave Australia. Dave Rubin, we've all seen that clip of that woman asking if Dave Rubin is a good citizen and whether or not he's vaccinated. And, he can't admit that he is. And then he tweeted, just to be clear, I've not had an RNA vaccination. Which means, obviously he had a different vaccination. Why would he be so specific? I really think it is for these types of people, the Ben Shapiros and the Satchers, I think it's a really opportunistic grift currently. They're vaccinated. Screw everyone else.
Been affected badly by this. Not your average punter at home who's got a job that they can do via Zoom for the most part.
So how is Australia's economy reacting to all of this? So
yeah, I saw he was talking to Stephen Crowder, I think, wasn't he? And Ben Shapiro had to try and walk back some of Crowder's anti-vax rhetoric. He still had to try and appeal, throw the red meat to his audience. But he couldn't go the whole way of, vaccines don't work, vaccines, blah, 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 blah. Also, I guarantee that Stephen Crowder is, but he is just such a liar that he would just straight up lie. There's some more news. Recent video about Crowder is great.
Lockdown policies in the United States had a dire effect on the American economy. As lockdown has been alleviated, it is no coincidence that the heavier lockdown states in the United States have rebounded at an extraordinarily slow rate compared to the ones that have opened up much wider.
Yeah, imagine if you had some sort of mechanism, some sort of, government that could implement, I don't know, some sort of fiscal policy to try and help that, to try. It's just so fucked up. Like sorry. Ben Shapiro is just so fucking annoying.
The top 10 states in terms of growth in the United States are all red states that reopen pretty quickly. The bottom 10 states in terms of growth have been blue states that have failed to reopen quickly.
And what are the other variables? What are the other consequences for those red states that have opened up so quickly? I mean, the only thing for these people is looking at the economy. Also, the economy doesn't mean, how everyone is doing. The economy could be, it's great for investment. It's great for all these people. It's great for all these huge companies that have gone in and bought up all these, smaller businesses, because all the, little businesses have gone out of business, bought up a swath of real estate, bunch of investments being, pumped into the state. And it's like, oh, cool, look at that. Anyway. I think anti-vaxxers that are not right-wing are people who don't trust their neoliberal governments that they know never had their interest in mind, just a symptom of the system. Look, I also agree with that. I don't think that every single anti-vax person is right-wing, is a grifter. I think there are a lot of them that just have gotten swept up. And I think that neoliberal governments have been incredibly bad at being able to tell the truth during this whole thing. We've gotten so used to politicians spinning and lying and not answering questions that when it comes time for them to have to actually, be like, hey, it's really important that you go out and get vaccinated, we are now so used to this spin and this dishonesty that, a lot of people are like, well, politicians, they're all self-serving and they're not, they've only got themselves, they've only got their own interests there. And I think that you are correct in that there are people there that, 100%, they just don't trust the government. And then if there's just this constant stream of, the vaccination is going to do this, the vaccination is going to do this, and they pepper in a few little, truths about, how fast the vaccine was made or, whatever, blah, 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 blah. It can be very persuasive to people who might not have a great understanding of, year 10 science, year 10 biology. I don't. Like, I went through school. I'm a teacher. I've got 2 degrees, but I don't understand biology. And hear these, seemingly common sense platitudes and just think, oh, well, the government's out to screw us over. It's just trying to undermine confidence in collective ideals. The herd mentality idea is a threat to power. The vaccination initiative reflects that to them. Alienation is a powerful drug, and that's what these people grift on. 100%. What was it? I was listening to Tom Nicholas yesterday, and he was talking about the mob, and how it used to represent something positive, and that you needed that on your side, and when nowadays the whole sheep rhetoric, I'm an individual and you're just a sheep, you go with the mob. And that has a lot to do with our collective strength and our collective power. I definitely agree with that.
What's the economy in Australia doing, given the fact that people are basically relegated to their homes?
Well, for most of the pandemic, we actually did reasonably well. We didn't suffer as much of a hit as the US did, and then our recovery was fairly strong.
Is he going to talk about why? Is he going to talk about the stimulus? Is he going to talk about how people got government money in order, if they lost their jobs or their income dropped, they got money so that they could keep buying things from their local businesses, so that their local economies kept going, so that the... he's not, is he? Calm down. Shapiro appeals to people who have personal struggles and are pissed off, but don't want to actually fix the macro problems they claim to care about. I definitely agree with that too. You know, you look around and you're like, wow, things are really terrible. And then Ben Shapiro's like, yeah, it's because of rap music and Lil Nas sliding down a stripper pole and he sold some shoes with Satan. And they're like, oh yeah, that's it. Also, yeah, I just got to vote Republican and everything will be fixed.
But there are a few specific reasons for this. So first, the government obviously spent a lot of money on relief packages, which in some ways is kicking a can down the road. But secondly, we're a commodity exporter in a big way, and we export a lot of iron ore, especially to China, which ironically, we're in a trade war with China, and China's trying very hard to wean themselves off us because they know that we're close to the USA. So that's not going to last forever. And our construction industry has been absolutely booming. People are throwing a ton of money into real estate because, well, when the government turns on the money printing machine, this is where your family wealth has to end up. So, it's going well for now, but with the latest lockdown, though, how long can it last? Normally, when we're in a boom time, which we technically are right now, that money is used to pay off debt. We keep incurring debt. It remains to be seen what the long-term severe effects of this might be.
I'm just laughing here because becoming...
Look, I'm not going to pretend that I know enough about economics to comment on what he just said there, but I'm just going to assume, because I disagree with everything else that he said, because it's been partisan and it's ignored the central issues, that what he said was probably incorrect.
Reliance on China in the aftermath of the pandemic unleashed on the world by China is definitely a unique economic strategy, given the fact that China's been extraordinarily robust in its hatred for the Australian government and in its belief that the Australian government is an interfering government in its own internal affairs.
I mean, this is pretty rich coming from an American that is like so supportive of US imperialism and US empire. I mean, do you think that Ben Shapiro knows how many countries the US has interfered with? And if he does, can he justify that? Not just to himself. Well, I mean, not just to his audience, but can he justify that to himself? I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they've tried hard to strong-arm Australia. They've taken issue with us for one, calling them out on their role in COVID-19, which they've covered up any objective investigation into. They've tried to get Huawei into our country to build our sensitive network infrastructure. We said no, and they've thrown a massive fuss. They demanded that we let them do that as a condition for having normal relations. They would never accept it if we send one of our companies there to build their sensitive infrastructure. So really, they're using these bullying tactics, and so far we've done all right simply because they need our iron ore really badly, and they're trying to find supplies in Africa. They're trying to, work out arrangements with other countries. And really, for now, we've done fine, but it remains to be seen how long that will last.
So, as I mentioned before, and as you mentioned before, there have been some pretty large-scale protests. Maybe you can describe the size of these protests, and is this going to be, you think, a growing movement in Australia? Or is it just going to peter out, and this is going to be the new Australian normal pretty much forever?
It's hard to tell what this will look like in the future. I can tell you that there was a huge protest.
Yeah. He would definitely justify it. He would work it into that narrative that he's already got, that worldview that he's got. There was this quote where he was talking about Judaism and how he goes into schools to talk about, evidence for his religion or whatever. And he says, he's like, I tend to think that there is justification for it. But that was a belief that he had first, and that he then went out and sought justification and evidence for. It's exactly the same thing, like you just said. He can't be critical of American empire. He can be critical of, Democrats and etc., but as a concept, the fact that America goes out and gets involved in other countries, he can't be critical of that. And so he would have to then go and try and find some way to justify it. Yeah, the right thing to do.
In Sydney a few weeks ago. Early on during lockdowns, that attracted about 15,000 people, but the media tried playing that figure down, even though all the footage shows the exact opposite. The protests recently in Melbourne were a few thousand. A lot of the people in these videos are just ordinary, normal people who've been affected badly and directly by the lockdowns. Now, one of the things is the government has not only made it illegal to protest, they've also made it illegal to promote the protests. So I have to be careful in what I say. If I word my Facebook post wrongly, I could come across like I'm condoning horrible criminal activity, such as going outdoors and holding a sign up. As we all know, that's what leads to the killing of innocent.
One thing that I bring up, guarantee these people were not talking about protest as a concept like this last year when BLM was happening. 100%. Now, And it's just hilarious that last year it was, shut up, listen to the cops, do what you're told. And then now, when the shoe's on the other foot, it's like, we just want to protest. The police are violent. What are they doing? Stand up for your rights. It's so funny. Amajano, according to... Oh, Jew in name only. Yep, according to Ben, and it sickers me that he's a public figure that represents American Jews. Yeah, it was yesterday. I was just thinking about that, the synagogue shooters a few years ago, who they looked through their YouTube history, and Ben Shapiro was the top person that they'd watched. And, he went on one of those blonde Fox chicks shows to be like, and now the left thinks that Ben Shapiro's encouraging shootings? And he's like, oh, how could a Jew encourage a shooting at a synagogue? And then they showed, not on Fox, but interviews with the dude. He was, he attacked that specific synagogue because they were Jews in name only. And it's linked to, these videos. I think it was PragerU videos. Anyway, where Ben Shapiro's talking about, why do so many Jews vote Democrat? And it's like, yeah, Jew in name only. Like, just completely othering and dismissing people's identity. He just did the drop a smoke bomb and exit stage left. 100%. Yeah, definitely. He's pretty pathetic in some regards.
Innocent people, apparently, and not the use of heavy-handed police tactics, which is what has happened. And keep in mind, I saw video footage recently that...
Heavy-handed police tactics. Guarantee last year, during the BLM protests, he was not talking about heavy-handed police tactics. I remember vividly so many of those videos that were coming out from those protests, from people just getting almost disappeared, just secret police grabbing people, taking them, locking them in buses and like underground car parks, like horrific. I'm just getting so worked up. And acts as if he speaks for Jews. That's the worst part. Yeah, absolutely.
There was this one father, he brought his son with him to protest. They were holding up a sign saying, "Let me play," because for some unscientific reason, the Victorian government has shut down the outdoor playgrounds, even though the science says that kids are at very low risk and outdoor activity is at very low risk. And
yeah, but they can be asymptomatic spreaders. Kids can be asymptomatic spreaders. That is the bit they can get COVID, and then they can go home to their parents or to their elderly grandparents and spread it, and then that spreads again. Are they dumb, or are they lying? I don't know. They have no shame. It's honestly something I kind of envy. Yeah, I mean, it would... not coronavirus. I believe you, coronavirus. Yeah, 100%. I mean, they know what... They've got it figured out, don't they? How do I... can't do that.
Exercise is good for you. That kid ended up being pepper sprayed, I assume when the police started with the crowd. So this is absolutely horrific. It makes no sense. It clearly has, some of these restrictions have...
Yeah. I'm against that. 100%. How many kids, teenagers, people, elderly people got pepper sprayed during Black Lives Matter protests? For people that supposedly care about human rights, it's just bizarre. I don't envy them at all. It sickens me to be like that. Soulless. Yeah. Yeah, I do wonder, what's their internal monologue? How does Ben Shapiro see himself? I honestly wonder that. And, Tucker Carlson and Steven Crowder, I think, is too dumb. I just think he's just dumb and insecure and putting on an act. But yeah, Ben Shapiro, he's too savvy not to. And I did this video about Abby Shapiro as well, ages ago, about how she could be a good vlogger. When she's talking about the culture war bullshit, it's just like she's reciting lines. You know, she knows it's something she has to say. But then when and it was such a clear distinction, she goes into talking about, you know, fashion. She's passionate about it, and she's interested in it. And it's just, it's like an enforced cognitive dissonance or something. Like just having to have, you know, it's like Christopher Hitchens says, you know, 2 sets of books that you keep. You know, you've got your one book where, you know, like people that want, you know, oh, I'd like it if everyone could go to hospital when they're sick. Those people are trying to destroy literally the world, and are also Satanists and are also pedophiles. And then the other hand, you've got this book about like, oh, everyone could like have fun with fashion. Like, how? Yeah. Must be torturous to be those people. Yeah. I mean, unless, I don't know if I believe in evil, but unless they're just bad people.
No basis in health whatsoever, leave alone a proportionate basis. And the police are actually, in New South Wales, for example, the police are helping to write the restrictions they're enforcing. So it's not just the health bureaucrats giving health input, it's the police saying, hey, this is how you can make my job of being able to strong arm and find people a lot easier, which is why some of these rules have come in place, even though the science says otherwise.
Have there been any lawsuits brought in Australia, any constitutional lawsuits? And what have the courts said about any of this? Because
constitutional lawsuits. Ben, you're such an idiot. He went to Harvard Law School also. He's just so uninterested in the world around him. Like, could he not have just... Do you actually think he Googled anything about Australia before this?
Because as you mentioned, I mean, if it is now becoming illegal to protest and illegal to even stump in favor of protesting or mention protest, like, how is this not violative of basic human freedoms in Australia at this point?
There are a few cases that are on...
We don't have a Bill of Rights. We don't have weird amendments. Our constitution's just like, hey, the states are responsible for this, and your railway gauges should be like this, and your maritime trade is the federal government. I would describe evil, causing suffering while being conscious of what you do. Yeah, true. Yeah, that's actually that is a pretty good definition. I like it.
Ongoing, and I do know that many fines that have been issued have ended up being overturned. A lawyer associate of mine, he was recently involved in cases involving some of the restrictions that brought in last year during the worst of those lockdowns. You know, it's a habeas corpus violation, so that has been happening. It'll take some time for these cases to go to fruition.
Habeas corpus violation? I don't think we have that. Habeas corpus order of the Australian Capital Territory. Does habeas corpus apply in Australia? Common law country, and like other common law country, its superior courts have jurisdiction to grant a writ of habeas corpus or orders in the nature of habeas corpus in order to secure the release of an applicant from legal detention. Huh, there you go. Just...
Keep in mind, we don't have the kind of liberal rights-defending constitution that you guys have, the kind of protections of free speech and free assembly, for example. So it's a much bigger uphill battle. And in fact, there was a recent court ruling, I believe it had to do with the border closures, either the interstate border closures or the border closures to the outside world.
Is he going to talk about Clive Palmer trying to fucking sue Western Australia and the federal government giving him like $1 million? I think most people, like 99%, tell themselves a story about why what they do is actually good, and they are good people. Ben might not really care, and it is just a bit ball of insecure pain. Yeah, I mean, everyone's the hero in their story. How do we change that? I guess it's teaching. Trying to educate people, trying to give them more information, different ways of seeing the world. There's this great Marcus Aurelius quote, teach or tolerate. I think, yeah, you got to try and get through to those people. I mean, unfortunately, people like Ben Shapiro are much better at doing that, though. Ben Shapiro, Tim Pool. Oh, Tim Pool. That's a video for another day.
World. And the court actually ruled and said that The Biosecurity Act, which is being used by the federal government for some of these restrictions,
Mitch McConnell is definitely
explicitly has the power to overrule fundamental human rights. And we've seen the court has actually come out and said that. And we've seen some of the emergency powers in the states being used to override basic civil rights protections. So it looks very grave at the moment, but full credit to the legal eagles who are fighting.
These people on the right hate civil liberties, lawyers, and cases. Hate them. I mean, in Australia. No, they do in America as well, don't they? It's ridiculous.
In those battles right now.
You mentioned travel restrictions into Australia. You mentioned that people who are coming in have to quarantine for a full 14 days. I mean, effectively, is there any travel into Australia at this point? I would assume not a lot of people are coming in.
Unless you're an Australian national, you cannot legally travel into Australia. The exception being, they have given exceptions. Caitlyn Jenner flew in, a few celebrities from the UK flew in to shoot Celebrity Big Brother. Because it turns out all you have to do, Hollywood stars have come in, no problem. They've been able to quarantine on their own in nice, lovely hotels. All they have to do is pay a ton of money for the privilege. Your ordinary person who wants to go out in the world, see their dying relatives overseas.
Yeah, and who is that? That is the federal government's... quarantine is federal government's responsibility. I just love how he will not throw the federal government under the bus at all. Oh, Vadim's videos on Tim Pool, very good. I don't think that's Hey, it's Vadim. I don't know if I've ever seen any of his videos. I'll have to check him out. That's the second time I've heard about him today, so I'll definitely have to go and check him out.
Fly in here to see someone they haven't seen in years, sometimes their own children, has a massive uphill battle. Now, I got lucky that I was even able to leave because I had to apply for essentially an exit visa, an exemption from the government to travel. I'm studying over here, so I was able to do that. But I know other people who've absolutely struggled to unite their families, and it's really cruel. And it's sending this message that there's a separate rule for the rich and the ordinary Australian, and your citizenship documents aren't worth as much as you'd like them to be worth. There's only, I believe, 3 countries now that require travel exemptions for their own citizens to even leave. I believe the other 2 might be Syria and North Korea. So, look, I tell people this, and over here, and they don't get it. They go, I thought the worst.
Yeah, but why is that? It's because, Creationist Cat. Okay, yeah, no, I've seen him there. Okay, I'll have to watch his video on Tim Pool. Now, I'm assuming it is because if you leave Australia, they're probably under the illusion that you are going to then want to come back. And so they need to make sure that they mitigate the risk of you leaving, going to some other country in the midst of a global pandemic and then coming back. This feigned ignorance, this feigned, like, what are they even on about? Like, stop and have a think. Like, if I can stop and have a think, I'm just some dude literally sitting at my computer in like a small country town in Queensland, old mate over here that is a senior contributor and it was with ATA and he's studying some fancy thing, it looks like, in America, Washington or whatever, clearly politics related. Clearly politics related. He's a political commentator. How could he not infer the reason for that? Oh, he's lying. He's a grifter. There we go. We figured it out. Took me a little bit, didn't it?
Thing about Australia were the mean spiders. No, it's not. It's our government, as it turns out.
Unbelievable. Satya Marar, thank you for your coverage. Really appreciate the time, and that is some horrifying stuff.
Well, that was adequately infuriating. But no, I enjoyed that. That was good to go through and watch that. But no real arguments. Like, lots of emotive language was used. No evidence. What? It's just, red meat to the fans. It's just for the people that already believe in that narrative, here's a little bit more. Here's a little bit more. Here's a little bit more. They're evil. Australia's evil. I do want to find that Candace Owens video, though, where she's calling for the president or whatever to fucking invade Australia. But I believe that will have to be another night. Thank you very much for everybody joining me. It's been wonderful. I definitely enjoyed this. And now that I've figured out, 1, how to stream, and 2, also how to chuck up videos that we're going to watch, I'll have to go through and get a list of very infuriating videos. And we'll be able to go through them and Yeah. Next one definitely can't be Ben Shapiro, though. He's just so smarmy. No, thank you. I really appreciated it. And I hope everyone has a good night, if it's nighttime where you are as well, or you enjoy the rest of your day. The right has flipped burner proof onto the left. Yeah, I was thinking that today. Like, the left is terrible at letting the right dictate the terms of the discourse. Just bizarre. Favorite dog on YouTube? Take that, radical reviewer. All right. See you later.